I'm here with PJ Starks, the writer, director, producer, coffee maker, caterer of Volumes of Blood and Volumes of Blood horror stories. And we're going to get to the Volumes of Blood horror stories here real quick. But PJ, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Real quickly, as fast as you can, explain to us, how did the original Volumes of Blood come to pass?
The long and short of it is I had started a short film series at the local library called Unscripted, and I came to them with the idea. We tried it out. It worked. It was successful. It actually became very popular, and it became so popular for them, bringing people in, that they wanted to try something new and different with it, and they wanted to try to expand the program. So we kind of talked about, well, what if we did like an unscripted film school, and we opened up the door to people in the community to be able to register and come on site, and we would shoot films in the library, and they would get an opportunity to be a part of that and see what it was like to make an independent film. So we did it. We did the first series of that. It was also very successful. And then they said, this went so well, we want to do it again as soon as we possibly can. And I had been wanting to do an anthology for years. And the original film school, it was 2 films being shot simultaneously in the library. So I pitched the idea for Volumes of Blood. I mean, that was even the title of it then. So I said, we'll do several short horror films over a period of time in the library, and then it'll all culminate once we're finished, and it'll be a feature anthology. And they loved the idea, so we moved forward with it, and that was Volumes of Blood. So I and a couple others, we ended up getting together and collaborating. We wrote the stories and came up with the overall arc of everything, and then there you have it. That's the genesis for Volumes of Blood, where it came from.
Absolutely amazing. And how did you go about recruiting all your various directors and stuff? I mean, you got some people who are well known in the indie film circuit. How did you go about getting their involvement? Did you just do like a call on Facebook and say, "Hey, do this with me," or did you know these people?
Well, for the first film, I knew a majority of them. Jim Blanford, who was running the library at the time, was really good friends with John Kenneth Muir, and he's written a bunch of books about horror films, and he wrote Horror Films Frequently Asked Questions, and he also wrote a book about John Carpenter, and so he was really good friends. So Jim said, "Hey, I want to bring John in," so that's how John ended up getting onto the project. But pretty much everybody else that was involved, Jacob Linsky, I was really good friends with already, and then like Nathan Thomas Milliner, I'd known him for a while. We hadn't really had an opportunity to work together, so this was the project that really gave us that opportunity. And plus, when he came on, he liked the script the script that he chose, but he had a few other ideas, and I'm real big with collaboration, and I realize that I am not the only creative entity on a project. So he was just like, "I have a bunch of ideas to try to revamp this script. Am I okay to do a rewrite?" And I was like, "Sure, go ahead." And that kind of creative freedom was another reason why he jumped on board and really got into it. So overall, all the directors that were involved, I had already known or worked with in some capacity outside of John Muir.
You guys really hit a home run on it. I mean, it made a huge splash, in the indie film scene and just in the horror scene in general, and just really wonderfully conceived. So that the success of that obviously led to a second film, Volumes of Blood Horror Stories, which, and now correct me here if I'm wrong or not, it is not available as of this moment to the general public, correct?
Correct. It is not available yet, but we did just secure distribution, so it will be coming out very soon. Right now, we're looking at potentially a summer release.
Well, that's very, very exciting.
Oh yeah, we're super excited. That's always a hurdle Because of the success of the first volumes of Blood, it made it a bit easier to secure distribution. We had a limited amount of companies that were interested in the first one because there really wasn't anything out there. Volumes of Blood wasn't much of a name. It made a little bit of a splash at the time, but since then, now Volumes of Blood is, like you said, it's made a pretty decent niche in the horror community. So because of that, we had quite a few more companies who were interested in the film. So luckily that's one less thing we got to worry about right now. Now we can start working on, moving on towards what we're going to do next.
Just real quickly, are we looking at a VOD and Blu-ray release, or just a Blu-ray release?
It'll be DVD, Blu-ray, VOD. Like I said, we literally just signed up.
The ink is still wet, huh?
Right. So exactly. So we're still getting a lot of those details ourselves.
Beautiful. Well, of course we'll have all the information for you here at Revolting Horror. As soon as PJ passes it along, we'll get it in your hot little hands, because you definitely want to get this. I've been fortunate. PJ shared a review screener with me, and I'll tell you, I love the concept where you went with this second anthology. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit how it's different? What you decided to do with Chapter 2 here.
Well, first of all, when we did the first film, it honestly, the reaction it got, the way it was received, all the praise and the just copious amounts of positive reviews and whatnot, I mean, that really kind of floored us. It was very humbling and very exciting, but at the same time, we were like, oh man, this is not what we anticipated at all. So going into the sequel, you always want to try to take things up to the next level. And we wanted to also kind of prove to ourselves that the first film wasn't just a fluke, because the first film was literally a group of horror fans, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times. I've said it a million times at this point, but it's the first film was a group of horror fans making a horror film for horror fans. And I think that's, our passion for it and our excitement and knowing what we love about horror films and utilizing all the tropes, but maybe trying to do it a little bit differently. I won't say it's like the most fresh horror film you've ever seen, but we tried to shake things up a little bit, and thankfully that seemed to work. And so going into the sequel, we told ourselves, well, we have to just, keep the same mindset. We have to remember that it's not just about money. It's not a studio film. It's literally, once again, it's a bunch of horror fans wanting to make another horror film. But at the same time, we also didn't want to just rehash the same storylines, the same, and touch on all the same subject matter and that kind of a thing. So going with the second film, when I sat down with Eric and I told him the concept I'd come up with, I said, I don't want to, and that's Eric Huskisson. He's the other producer. He's my partner in crime. We started Blood Moon Pictures together. So this would also be the film under our new production moniker. So I said, with this concept, I want to touch on the first film just a little bit. And I want to add some things in there. So if you've seen the first film, you'll appreciate these things, these nods to the first movie. But, I won't go as far as saying it's like a cult classic or anything like that. It's not Evil Dead, at least not yet. So
there you go. So that's the attitude we're looking for.
So, if you make an independent film and then you go to do the sequel and not too many people have seen the first one, even if it's made somewhat of a splash, you still run the risk of a vast majority of people still have not seen the first one. So we didn't want to make a direct sequel, because then people are going to be confused. They're going to be like, what is this? I feel lost. And so that's when I wanted to go from a whole other perspective and say, well, let's make a sequel that is loosely based off the first one. It will continue some storylines and things, but we'll do it in such a way to where it'll feel like watching it for the first time, and it doesn't feel like you have to have seen the other film. And I had actually come up with an anthology idea years ago whenever I was out house hunting with my wife, and every time we went to a new location, a new house to look at, I always thought to myself, like, oh, it was built in 1904, you know, so what horrible atrocities have taken place inside this house that we don't know about. So that's kind of where the concept came from, the wraparound in horror stories. It's about a couple who is searching for a house that they want to purchase, and they think they found the right one. And before they close on it, they decide to get with what turns out to be a very shady realtor. And they say, well, we literally want to go floor by floor, and we want to just check every floorboard of this house and see what, you know, if this really is the place that we want to purchase. So that's what he does. He takes them from floor to floor, and every time they go to a different floor, they find something new that catches their attention, and when they start to question it, it then jumps back in time, and it shows you what terrible things have happened over the last 10 years in this house. And of course, there's a few other things that happen within the fold of the plot that I won't get into, some surprises and things, but it does bring back some of the characters, such as the Face, which is the killer who went on this big killing spree at the last final moments of the first film. So we brought him back, and it also gave us an opportunity to create a few more slashers that have ultimately created some other ideas for spin-off films that we're looking at going into production on.
Excellent. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I know you already know, over at Gruesome Magazine, I included it in my top 10 of last year. I mean, yes. I really, really enjoyed it. And that's the reason I put in there was exactly pretty much how you said it. It's obvious that this is a group of people who just love the genre, and they have the skill and they have the ability and the wherewithal to make these movies for other horror fans. And your guys' enjoyment of it just shines through on every frame of the film. So
thank you.
I can't stress enough that when this comes out, everyone, you've got to rent it or pick it up, or whatever, however you can get your hands on it, get it. Preferably own several copies in case one goes bad, right?
Yes, that's a perfect plan.
That's the perfect plan. Well, PJ, hey, I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time here and sitting down with us. Hope to have you back on again for your next project. Absolutely. And we can talk about that.
Sounds good.
Hey,
thank you.
Thanks, PJ.